Yo guys, VisionSGen here, back with more Minecraft content. Today's episode number 6 will go into detail on the Nether Fortress, which contains unique mobs such as blaze and wither skeletons and more, as well as rare loot. And overall, these Nether Fortresses can be extremely tricky to explore and find, and it's why I wanted to help you guys as new players or returning old school players like myself with understanding everything you need to explore a Nether Fortress, and also what you're going to be exploring in the fortress for. So on that note, let's get right into it. So first things first, this is episode 6 on my Minecraft survival series, and understanding the Nether is key. So if you guys need to know more about the Nether itself, go check out my previous episode number 2, which is on the channel and in the description below, which basically details everything you need to know regarding the biomes, mobs, ancient debris, which is used for, of course, netherite armor, and then, of course, the unique structures such as the Nether Fortresses and the Bastion Remnants. Now, as for this episode, let's discuss what a Nether Fortress is in Minecraft survival. A Nether Fortress is a large castle-like structure which is made primarily of nether bricks and generates in long, bridge-like sections with corridors, staircases, and rooms. Essentially, the purpose of a fortress is that they are key for progression, especially early game, as they contain unique resources and mobs such as blaze spawners. And blaze, of course, when they are killed, drop blaze rods, which are essential for crafting eyes of ender, which basically allow you to reach the end and activate the portal, which I'll go over in a future episode coming up on the series. And in addition to this, the fortress also has wither skeletons, and when slain, they drop wither skeleton skulls, which are used to summon the wither boss, which is of course one of the end game results that you want to achieve in order to get a beacon and so on. But it's also unique for housing nether warts, which grows in soul sand patches around the fortress itself, and this is needed for brewing potions and very useful, and you can take it back to your base and then you can plant it and regrow it all yourself once you have it. Now the structure itself features things like hallways, bridges, fences, sometimes even chests with loot such as diamonds, gold, iron, and even saddles, which is really useful, especially early game. Now besides blaze and wither skeletons that spawn here, you will also find regular skeletons, magma cubes, and zombie piglins in the fortress. Of course, ghasts can also spawn nearby, so when you're in open catwalks, etc., make sure you're aware of this, because I've actually had it before where I'm walking alongside a catwalk on the edge, playing really risky, and then a ghast will literally just shoot and knock you off the edge, and you will land down below in the lava, and you'll be really annoyed. So make sure you're just looking out for ghasts. You'll hear their noises and the sound cue, but just make sure you're aware of them. But as you can see, there is a lot of mobs here in the Nether. There's especially a lot of mobs in the fortress itself, and they are very dangerous places to explore, but they again are really useful for resources and of course unique loot for things like blaze and wither skeletons. Now, as for finding a Nether fortress, they spawn in strips along your x-axis in the Nether. Basically, you want to look for dark, towering-like structures, which are often spawned over lava lakes. Now, in my opinion, these are some general tips that you want to make sure that you're aware of and bring alongside with you in order to explore these places for all worst-case scenarios, but also just general advice. Now, I would definitely be bringing fire resistance potions, which are vital for when you're exploring the Nether itself and also the fortress, because let's be honest, you are going to be encountering lava very often in these places, so just make sure you have something like that to protect yourselves. Of course, you will need some good armor, at least some enchanted iron armor or even diamond if better, because I know this is something you want to do early game and get out of the way, but if you're in here with just regular iron armor, you are going to struggle. I've experienced it myself. This is not somewhere where you want to be running around with, especially with iron armor. If you get hit with a wither skeleton just once, you are very vulnerable to the likes of any arrow from a normal skeleton or even anything like a blaze or a ghast. So just make sure that you have some decent armor when you come into it, and as well as that, a good sword and a good bow, that goes a long way as well as this. So just make sure you are prepared for exploring these places. Now of course, as for the blazes and the wither skeletons, they are really tough, but a good shield can really go a long way and help you in these engagements and staying alive throughout, so make sure you consider them as well. And also, just another tip, watch for the gaps in between the bridges to avoid falling into lava. I myself have actually had it where I'm just standing near a gap and I basically was shot by a skeleton and launched off the cliff. Fortunately for me, I did have the feather falling enchantment, so I did survive, as you can see in the clip, but for the most part, it is something you do not want to do and you want to avoid doing. Now also, don't make the same mistake as me and spend time opening chests in the fortress itself and moving loot around whilst in the background, and then not securing your safety by placing blocks behind you to allow you to not get crept up on by the likes of a wither skeleton or so on, because I've actually made this vital error myself. I was basically going around looting chests, being really safe, and then this one time I wasn't, was typical. I found a chest and essentially there was a little lava stream next to it, just literally 3 blocks tall, not even, it's just one little lava stream, and then next to this chest was this lava stream, and a wither skeleton came up behind me whilst I was in the chest. It knocked me into the lava and effectively I died, and this was even with netherite gear, full netherite gear. Of course I had the elytra, but still basically full netherite gear, and I lost everything, and I was like, oh my god, this is, what have I done? I'm going to have to get all the way back to this fortress. And unfortunately for me, it just so happened that the night before, we went exploring around local villages and went quite far away. I was about 5,000 blocks away from my actual base, and I slept and made a stupid mistake, and I slept at a local village, and basically that meant that I spawned 5,000 blocks away from my base, so I then had to run all the way back to my base, which was really annoying and stressful, then have to get a spare set of loot, which by the way is a good tip to have, a spare set of loot, and then I had to travel all the way back to the nether and quickly find all of my loot before it despawned once you render within the chunk distance, and it was just a bit of a stressful experience. So in order to avoid this and going forward, always place blocks behind you when you're looting sort of around this fortress and making sure you are secure when you're opening chests. But just also general advice for when you're exploring a fortress, I use this sort of method. This is my method, but you guys can do whatever you want. I always place torches to the right side of me, so whenever I'm exploring a mine or a fortress or anything, so I know when I return back through it, if it's on my left, I'm coming back against myself, and if it's on my right, then I'm continuing the same progression. And also, if this area has been like a dead end in a fortress, or it's just not worth exploring anymore, I'll typically use a building block, usually netherrack or whatever I have on me, and I'll place it along the top to essentially resemble that this area is either a dead end or just has no loot or whatever. Sometimes you can just block it off and just make it a bit easier for yourself, but that's for the most part just general advice for how to explore the fortress, because they're really easy to get lost, and there's just so many different sort of turning points and so many different mobs you will want to be in and out of here as efficiently as possible. So just general advice for me. They are dangerous, but they are critical for advancing through the game. Nether fortresses, once you've explored one and gathered all of the essentials, such as the 3 with the skeleton skulls, the blaze rods, a sufficient amount of course, magma cream and nether warts for of course brewing, and then cleared all of the chests, you don't really need to then return to this fortress or any in general, as you've essentially ready to progress to the next step in survival. But basically you're able to craft all of the things once you get these resources, such as the eyes of Ender for when you want to go to the end stronghold, which I'll explain in a future episode coming up on the channel for this Let's Play series going forward. You can then also brew potions in preparation for things like boss fights with the Wither and the End Dragon, as well as good loot to help you in achieving your goals throughout the game. This is just generally a really good place in early game to just explore, get it out of the way, make sure you maximize the resources, and then you never really have to return here again. For myself, I do enjoy exploring the Nether in a weird way. It's very eerie and slightly terrifying at times, of course, but continuing to explore the Nether is also key for progression, as you'll find things like the ancient debris, which I explained in a previous episode on the channel, episode 3, and of course the bastions, which again I'll go over in a future episode coming to the channel for the Let's Play series, but explaining everything you need to know about the remnants themselves, and also just the Nether fortresses and the Nether itself are all things I want to sort of provide for newer players and returning players, because it is vital for the game. In a weird way, it is somewhat fun, especially if you have sort of other members in the server with you to play with. It can be a really exciting and also a terrifying experience at the same time, which is something you don't really get in the overworld at times, because you're either exploring the overworld and safer biomes, or you're building and doing things like that, or just expanding on your base, or unless of course you find an ancient city, which of course is terrifying and definitely probably something up there with another fortress in terms of difficulty, probably even harder in some ways. Depends on what your level of experience is in Minecraft. But if you're like me, and this is the first time you're playing Minecraft Survival in over 10 years, then all of these things can actually be very overwhelming at times. So understanding little tips and tricks on how to do these things more efficiently, but also safely, is very key. And this is why I sort of made this video, because I thought I'd make it very easy for newer players that hopefully sort of pick up this video and see that there's little things that you should be aware of, or just tips and tricks that I've learned along the way throughout my own experience on things you should be aware of in order to explore these places, like I said, more efficiently, but also safely, so that you can return back to your base with all the resources that you've gathered, and then sort of progress through the game to get that end game result. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That's the full summary for Nether Fortress. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, tips or tricks or suggestions that you want to share with both myself and any new players who are maybe playing the game for the first time ever, or returning players like myself, then please let us know down below in the comments, as it will be massively appreciated. I'm Vision SGen. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.